Games. Board games, what we're talking about. Board games, I'm gonna not shout. Board games, I'm gonna sing a little bit before I start this thing. Board games, this is the tune. Board games, I'm back in my room, as you can't see, because outside it's cold. And I am maybe getting old. Hello, everybody. I am Bez, and this is the Bezzy Breakfast Board Game Blether. And I am answering a bunch of questions. And hello and good morning to Alan Outson, who's already been awake in the comments and offering questions, which is super awesome. Thank you very much. And that's what we're basically doing today, talking about whatever people ask. If you've got any questions for me, whether it's questions about philosophy, about me as a person, maybe I like other things, music and sometimes comics and painting things. I used to enjoy cycling and performing music. And so if you want to know about any of those other things, then please ask. Or indeed, if you want to know anything about games, about, I've still got Kawaii here, or my preferences on games, what are my favorites, or how did I make something, or what is my next game going to be signed? I can't tell you that yet for 2 days. I'm very excited about this. I've got to... that's being signed by... and I'm definitely going to tell you as soon as I can tell you. You might want to ask me about design, development, art, publishing, or game theory, or whatever. And by game theory, I did actually mean board game design theory. But yeah, if you want to ask me about game theory, about, how would I personally react in a prisoner's dilemma, I'd probably just follow the bot that does the same thing as the previous person with some small allowance, randomish chance of forgiveness. Anyway, and maybe that's kind of a philosophical issue that we sort of think about. It's like, how that bot won the prisoner's dilemma. For anyone who's not aware, the prisoner's dilemma is a dilemma where, okay, do you cooperate or do you betray? Where it's better for you if both people cooperate, but it's always strictly better if you betray. Now, what's the best system? In a one-off iteration of the prisoner's dilemma, it's always better to betray, but it's only interesting, the prisoner's dilemma, when you do it multiple times, because then if you betray against someone else, they're more likely to betray against you, which makes it worse in the long run. So what is the best strategy? Well, according to lots of tournaments, according to lots of robots, it's literally just do exactly what the opponent did or partner did to me in the previous time, and have a random chance that I'm going to forgive you, and even if you betrayed, I will work with you. And so if you want to ask about game theory, that's under the remit. Whatever, it's literally ask me anything. And morning to Alan Outson, as I said, and morning to Dave Weatherall. Looking forward to hearing about your new signing in due course. Now, this might be a game that Dave is familiar with, but please, Dave, don't give clues. But it might be, a game that I'm not going to say anymore because that's probably saying too much. And Alan Outson says, depending on the prisoner's dilemma, it depends why Alan's in prison, surely. Yeah, that's the problem with game theory. It assumes that everyone is a computer. It assumes that everyone is some sort of just making the best optimal move and not taking into account all these social pressures, all these feelings of potentially guilt or remorse or anything else that you might have as an actual human. So yeah, game theory goes towards telling us what would be the optimal move in self-preservation, in self-protection. And so game theory, ironically, interestingly, is actually really super useful for Euro games. And so if you're ever playing a game where, you've properly stepped into the magic circle, where you're saying, yes, we are willing to betray each other and not let it impact our lives, then game theory is actually more relevant. But before we start really answering all the questions, And we've got quite a bunch from Alan Alton. Thank you very much. And anyone else who wants to submit questions, please submit any. We are going to talk about a brilliant thing, games I played recently, and other daily highlights. So, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant thing. This is a thing that is brilliant. So I'm just looking around I'm not going to lie, this is me just the first thing that I notice, and I want to talk about scissors. I mean, scissors are pretty damn awesome. I mean, someone made a point that if you had scissors or a knife, which would you choose? And let me know your choice. But my immediate gut reaction was, okay, I'm going to go for knife. I use knives a lot more often than I use scissors. And if I'm cutting paper, maybe I can just use a scalpel. Maybe I can get myself a cutting mat, and that would be all good. But then they made a point that if you've got scissors, it's easier to use scissors as a knife than to use knife as scissors. And also, it's worth noting that professional kitchen scissors, they can be separated. They've got a little hook. You unhook them, and then you can wash them, and then you can put them together. So in theory, those you could actually just cut up. But anyway, we don't live in a world, thankfully, where we have to choose between scissors and knives. And if I want to cut a sheet of paper, I can do that so easily, so precisely with scissors. That's the power of scissors. And if I want to do a little bits of crafts, if I want to separate some stickers, if I want to cut out some cards, then scissors are in there to kind of save us. And these scissors, just to let you know, these scissors were given to me by a wonderful person who does make some clothes, and they were opposite us at Aircon, so thank you very much. So that's a brilliant thing, scissors. Next time you're using scissors, I think, let's appreciate the fact that, they've got this hinged, or meaning secure, they kind of turn. There's like lots of interesting things. Just this little hinge that's going on, the power of this hinge, that's really clever design. Now let's go back on topic and talk about games. And I think you'll notice that I've got a few games behind me. I should just put a random stack of games back there. And Dave Wedderall says, I love how you seldom see a scissor on its own rather than in a pair. I mean, it is a pair of scissors, that's true. So I guess, yeah, it would be the proper cooking scissors where you can separate them. And does that make it a scissor? I mean, yeah, it's same with a pair of trousers. Now I think about it, what other object just in its own comes as a pair of trousers, pair of scissors? Is there anything else? So yesterday I played Chronicles of Crime, and I also played a little bit of Mini Muckle with the family. So first I played Mini Muckle. This is not the full version of Mini Muckle. This was literally just the simpler version where you've got 3 lines. You don't get negative for having more lines. You're not trying to make one really long word. And so the maximum score was 24, which I managed to get. Of course, Vida and Mina managed to get with their mum's help, which was really impressive. Orash got, Dad almost got, and Mum got pretty close with 21. And then what we did at the end was having a little bit of a twist about it, where we said, okay, all the words that you've devised, now you need to make up a story. For example, I could say, oh, I was looking around and I saw all the birds in the garden, and there were a pair of blue tits ordering me to shh, because they were worried that all the ions from my speech would turn the ice cream into an odd form of pap on top of their heads. And the story doesn't have to make sense. It's just a silly thing. And then everyone comes up with their own thing. That's a game that I really, and I enjoyed it because of the people. I mean, I'm clearly biased because I made it up. I don't like the simpler version so much. The bit at the end of having to use your own words means that children have to know how to use the words in a sentence. If I'm playing in French, I have to know how to use the words in a sentence which is meaningful to me, and practicing those sentences. But yeah, the actual going through it and getting the 24 points, that's not that interesting. And if I'm being honest, it's mainly for the social gathering that we play it. But that is what games are fundamentally about. And it's about getting the game that's the best thing for the group. Alan Oughton said, you get a pair of glasses. That's absolutely true. Scissors, glasses, trousers. Maybe that's the full list. So yesterday, I also played Chronicles of Crime with my housemates, which has some awards from Dice Tower and Man vs. Meatball. So this game, it is basically app-driven. It's very much app-driven. You cannot play it without an app. And the cards are there just to be something that you scan. So the rules are literally about 8 pages. That's the entire rules. There you go. And then in the game, it is a bunch of cards. I really like what they've done here. Oh, fuck. Pardon my language. They've put a little plastic thing so that the cards don't fall out. That's really smart. And you kind of clip it in. And then each of the cards have a little QR code on them. And you've got these locations, which also have QR codes like Westminster and whatnot. And you can talk to criminologists or scientists to do forensic check for fingerprints and stuff. It's a really nice system. And I'm looking forward to sharing that and playing more with my housemate. And that's the thing that you're like, okay, yeah, we really enjoyed it. And housemate was really blown away. It is the app, basically, just to give you an idea, it says, okay, here's the home. You scan on the little app the card of home, to go back to the police station. And the police person will say, hey, scan me to talk to me, or this is where the body is. This is another location. And then you scan the other location and it's, hey, you're in the Royal Museum and you see this person, and then you go hunting through decks. There's a really nice system. I'm not going to review that but like, if you've got quick questions, obviously that's not the theme of today, but like, it's a really nice game. I'd absolutely recommend it. For someone who hates having an app in their hands, then it's a terrible game. But actually, I've got to be honest, this is a really good game for right now. If you're locked at home with one other person, and there's one other person that you play games with sometimes, or indeed if you like the idea of a point and click, but you want to do a point and click while you're maneuvering some cards, I would say that 2 people is the ideal number of people to play this game with, because then you've got one person looking at the app and scanning things, and one person going through the cards, and you've got a little bit of back and forth discussion where one person says, hey, what if it was that person who was the killer? What if let's start talking to them about this? And then you need to, when you're talking to someone, you can talk to them about any bits of evidence that you've gathered. And in theory, you could scan literally all the possibilities and do it, really analytically. There is a scoring system that says, okay, if you've taken too long, then your score lowers every time you ask someone about something. You spend 5 minutes. Every time you move, you use 20 minutes. But fundamentally, it's about the joy of going through the game and being like, okay, who did this and what's going on, and learning that story. And it comes down to the writing, and the writing's actually quite nice, and not to mention the atmospheric music. And if you can connect that to a set of speakers as we could, then boom, you've got some really atmospheric music pumping out of those speakers. So that's the stuff that I've been playing recently. Now, stuff that I've been doing recently, other than the live stream and playing Mini Muckle with the storytelling in the morning and playing Chronicles of Crime in the evening, all I did yesterday was basically lay down. I did do a little bit of exercise. I did some hula hooping, but I basically laid down and I watched literally 3 and a bit films. I watched, I know this isn't a film show, but that Dan Brown thing, not the Angels and Demons, the other, Da Vinci Code, that's the one. So Da Vinci Code, yeah, it's like, I read the book and the film, I started watching it, and after like a couple of minutes, I just got bored. So I kind of started skipping ahead, and I watched a couple of seconds. So I kind of watched the film in about 10 minutes or so. I was like, yeah, I don't feel like I have to watch this film. So it was one of those things that I'd gotten from a charity shop from 50 pence or something. And so I was like, yeah, I had my 50 pence of entertainment. Back to the charity shop it goes after the whole lockdown thing. Or if anyone wants it, then. And I watched a couple of other films. I watched Sucker Punch, which was basically just, it's very much 18. It's a film like comic action style. It doesn't make very much sense. It's sorts of sexy women. It's like kind of lingerie and stockings. People in fighter jets attacking dragons, and then people in mechs attacking a Second World War thing. And um, the vague premise was that someone's going to a mental institute and has to construct these fake realities to protect their own mind. But that premise, honestly, it's wafer thin. And if you actually start looking for any meaning or any introspection of, okay, what was going through that person's head, I mean, there's not a lot of indication of, okay, actually, how was that bearing, or what happened to the person who apparently stole their inheritance. And there is some amazing music scenes. They've got some music that you'll probably know from other films, like Where Is My Mind, and by the and then it's all, they've got a lots of music, I think, from the Beatles and stuff, like just resung in weird kinds of new versions that completely reframe these things. And even the opening sequence, where it's basically about the mum dying, then getting the inheritance, and someone else being, oh my god, the daughters are getting all the inheritance. Well, I'm going to kill the daughters, and it's really twisted. But yeah, the whole thing, I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest. It's like really visually entertaining, but it's just vacuous, and I feel like at worst it can be problematic. I also watched a couple of the Naked Gun films, two of the Naked Gun trilogy. The second one, meh. The first one was brilliant. The first one, there's an amazing scene with overreacting at the baseball game, and the whole premise of the first, that the Queen is doing a tour of America, like Queen Elizabeth is touring America. That's just hysterical, and that's just funnier. That I think so. Yeah, Naked Gun first one was better than the second one, and in our home we've got all three on DVD. But I'll probably get rid of the trilogy because it's not something that I feel the need to watch in the next couple of years. Anyway, so that is what I've been up to recently. Just enjoying myself, taking it easy, kind of, I guess, having a bit of downtime, zoning out, crashing on the couch, and just watching a few films. And sometimes that is okay. Wow, Dave Weatherall's got a lot of things that come in pairs. Forceps, tweezers. The generic term is plurale tantum for nouns that appear only in plural form, whether relating to pairs or sets, e.g. feces or alms. That's very interesting. Thanks for that bit of knowledge. Now let's get to the questions. And if you have any questions, please ask, and I will be starting with something from Alan Oughton. I will be answering question 6. The rest of them I just copy-pasted because I had to. So, if you could meet up with any other game designer or anyone else, who would it be and why? You'd have to comply to the 2-meter rule, of course. Okay, so I guess this is kind of a twist on the who would you have to dinner. But this is this kind of the old living or dead? Are they allowed to be dead? Am I allowed to reincarnate them and they, talk to me as if they were during when they had the mind and everything? And could I talk to Gary Gygax and ask them about Dungeons and Dragons? That would be pretty cool. So presumably, I'm going to assume, like, my gut reaction is, yeah, Gygax seems up there. That would be super cool. And then if I could meet up with them and they were dead, I'd probably get people to say, hey, what questions should I do? And let's do something for the good of humanity. Let's tell Gygax about everything that's happened since their death and see how Gygax responds to that. That would be quite interesting. Um, Anyway, so let's assume that it's someone living and I've got two-time teleportation. So they teleport to me and then they teleport back. And let's assume that it's kind of like a make-a-wish thing. Like the person is probably going to be all right doing it, but it's not like their number one priority. So Mark Roosevelt would be like, yeah, sure, I'm a busy person, but I can make time to chat to Bez for 40 minutes because there's this crazy make a wish thing where Bez has been given this power over a two-time teleportation that Bez can teleport anyone over to themselves and back again for just 40 minutes. That's an interesting question. Well, then clearly it wouldn't be someone that I get to speak with normally, would it? I mean, as much as I like my people that I live close to and that I see fairly often, like McCall and Layla, or even Ellie, who I've not seen for so long and see normally every week. These people I would probably not bother that much with because I'm going to see them over the next year or so anyway. And Dave, I mean, I'm probably going to see you at the next time that we are able to have a live convention. Whereas if I were to, I mean, so freedom and freeze, I guess what I'm really trying to, what maybe it's just my nature, I'm trying to game this. Like, not gamify, I'm trying to kind of work out exactly what the rules allow me to do and what they don't allow me to do. And I'm thinking, yeah, as much as I might like to talk to Friedman Friese, even, like Friedman Friese, amazing. They've done some amazing stuff with, the Fast Forward series with Flea and everything. Um, that would be quite cool. The problem with Friedman Fries is that I get to see them, although very briefly, at Essenspiel. And it's a possibility that I might go to Essen one day. I mean, it's less likely that I would get to see Mark Rosewater, for example. But then actually, when I think about it, Friedman Fries, even though I said Mark Rosewater first, I'm going to say Friedman Fries because I like to think that if I said, hey, Friedman Fries, out of everyone, I picked you with this magical two-way teleportation device. And I like to think that Friedman Fries is humble enough that they would still be honoured by this. And then we could have a really good chat about older games. Because whilst I love the stuff that Mark Rosewater has brought to Magic the Gathering, whilst I would love to hear about Mark Rosewater's unpublished game Mood Swings, which they only reveal tantalizing details about, I would really like to talk to Friedman Fries about 504 and about the design lessons in Fast Forward, because, yeah, just moving ahead, Fast Forward, a game where the cards came in predetermined order, and then as you went through the games, the cards actually told you the rules. So it would, instead of having to read all the rules ahead of time, the rules would maybe be subdivided into text on cards. And what that meant was that you'd only hear the rules when you need to have them. And then the game would slightly ramp up the difficulty as it goes along, which is a really interesting thing. And I'm trying to apply that same principle to Categorical, which I'll be printing this year, hopefully. And so I'd love to talk about, hey, how do you think I should do this? And hey, how did it go with these other games? And how do you feel about 504? What were your intentions? Was it just for the sake of it? Was it for love? And I would love to have like a proper good chin wag with Friedman Fries. And also, I know that Friedman Fries is German, but their English is good enough that I think we could have a really good conversation whilst walking through the woods. And maybe I'd even, under current COVID situations, could I prepare something for them? I mean, I've definitely got some spinach in the oven. I've got, not in the oven, in the freezer. I've got some frozen spinach. I'd cook a lot of frozen spinach, mix it together with some onions. It's a recipe that I've tried. Maybe, what else is green? Get some parsley on top, all for Freedom and Freeze. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. And maybe even, I was going to say go to the local cloth shop and get a couple meters of green cloth just for Freedom and Freeze. But, they're not really allowed in the house, are they? But apparently, according to these laws now, we're allowed to sit in a park. I mean, what's all that about? That's ridiculous. Let's not get too involved in politics. But I would go for a picnic with Friedman Freeze. That's what I've decided, because apparently that's allowed by current British law. I would prefer some spinach, and if I could get a bit of green cloth, then brilliant. I'd get a bit of parsley. I'd think, okay, maybe some vegetable salad with some broccoli, some lettuce. I don't know. Try to look out for all the green things and put them together. Because for anyone who doesn't know, Friedman Fries has two things that they are really they're famous for being a board game designer, but they have two quirks, I should say, that they're known for. So firstly, based on their name, Friedman Fries, they decided that they were compelled to always talk about games that have F in their name. So that's why their games are such titles as Funkenschlag and Fast Flowing Forest Fellers. That is actually the name of a game. And Fabled Fruit, Flea, all their games starts with F. It's crazy. And the other thing is that all their games have some green in them. I mean, I think that Power Grid, which was originally called Funkenschlag, was the thing that I would have to double check, but I assume that's the thing that actually allowed them to become a full-time board game designer. And so with the board Friedman Fries, once they were able to become a board game designer and able to have some say over their own stuff, and with their own company, 2F Spiele, but they license it out to other companies to do in English versions. And so all the 2F Spiele games are green, whether you look at Flea or whether you look at Fast Flowing Forest Fellers. And so, yeah, that is my favorite person to hang out with, hypothetically, if I could. I mean, I've never hung out with them outside of convention, and that's part of the appeal. So, thinking community, I guess that's, big accounts. I don't know if you're a bot. If you're not a bot, I guess, it would be nice if you say that you're not a bot. I know there's a lot of bots on YouTube recently. It's quite interesting. And like, I've got people saying, hey, do you want to be friends? And then they say that exact same message on multiple of my videos. I mean, recently I've been doing about 9 videos a week. So I get to see if there's a bot that would maybe ping 1 in 5 of my videos. I'm actually seeing that quite regularly recently. And so that's why I've noticed, hey, that person is coming in and saying, hey, do you want to be friends, and giving no other content. And I think that this person was back recently with some questions. So maybe this is a bot that just looks for the questions AMA, and maybe they're trying to get some self-promotion. So someone kind of looks up their name and gets some mind share. I mean, that would be interesting. I genuinely wonder if that's a marketing strategy. And so I'm going to assume. And Dave says that they get the same on YouTube videos. Do you want to be friends? And what does that even mean? I mean, want to be friends? There's no like Facebook friends thing. I guess it means, hey, do you want to follow each other? And then they're basically just looking for followers to up the subscriber count. But yeah. And thinking community comes into this bit where I think that this person is a bot, but I'm just going to allow them be, because they're not too malicious, and the worst thing is that they're spreading some mind share. But do I have a PhD? So I'm going to make a little banner, because I don't particularly want to give them too much mind share. So do you have a PhD? This is a question that was asked by someone on YouTube just now. And the answer is no, I do not have a PhD. But the other question which you could ask is, would I like to have a PhD? I have legitimately thought about it at some points. The truth is that I probably don't actually like that kind of studying. I don't like, I get a bit anxious towards the end of a project anyway. Like, honestly, like when it comes towards the end of this sort of thing, and shout out to Denim Spur, like Denim Spur made the completion of Kitty Cataclysm and Wibble++ Deluxe so much easier. With In a Bind Junior, In a Bind expansions, which was at the same time as In a Bind, but then Wibble plus plus the original. I was on my own, and Wibble plus plus the original was definitely easier than the In a Bind games, because I'd been through that process already. But I know that when I went through college, true story, I spent about 6 months of it, not 6 months of the year, not going into any classes, because I just got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I'm just like overwhelmed. I'm going to like hide away for a bit, and I'm going to stay away for a bit. And the same happened in university. Like the first, actually, I'm trying, except for so I've been to two universities. One, I went to computer games technology, which was meant to be half design, half programming. Then they took out the design and put in loads of programming, and I didn't like that. Second time, and I basically failed second year twice because I stopped attending classes about halfway through the year because I got um, really depressed. And after going back to Glasgow, back to my parents' house, and then I went backwards in education, said, okay, I'm going to do arts this time rather than anything too technical. And then I went to college for that, skipped 6 months, but I rushed, crammed through lots of stuff, managed to get it done, went through to university, again, skipped 6 months. But then my brother kind of convinced me to kind of really cram, because they allowed me to do some resits over the summer. And then through those resits over the summer, I really crammed, I really worked hard, and I ended up with, I think, a 2-1. And anyway, it was some sort of second. And the point is, I managed to get a degree, but I don't know if I react well to that sort of formal education. Now, I don't know how the PhD process compares to the going into classes process, because I imagine the PhD process, it's more of like sort of a mentorship. You need to self kind of govern your stuff, but you do have someone kind of keeping you on track, which to me might be actually far nicer than traditional education. And I remember even going back to school, there were so many times when I was really, really under stress by people saying, oh, you've got to do this homework by such and such a time, and people giving me, back when I used to do art at school, like I stopped it at the earliest opportunity, because they would say, okay, spend half an hour on it. I would sort of spend some time on it, and then would say, oh, you've just not spent the time on it. And then one time, like I spent like about 2 or 3 hours doing this drawing, and say, oh, you see what you can do when you spend half an hour on it. And I spent way more than half an hour on it, and that seemed to, it really killed my enthusiasm for it all. And frankly, sometimes I wasn't the most organized. Sometimes I was just wanting to take a bit of time to play computer games or read comics or whatever. And yeah, having to do all this homework every single night, I ended up running away from home for a night. True story, purely because I felt so guilty about never having done my homework. And that is a true story. I don't know if anyone was expecting me to share this story beforehand. Like I certainly wasn't. But yeah, that is yeah, wait, that's so I would I get a PhD? I have considered in the past PhDs based on text via the lowest number of pixels. I think that would be quite interesting, like text displays on really low resolution units. And going back to, even before computers, there was some technology using stickers, modular stickers that you could make them with, that actually I think might have predated the LCDs. Don't quote me on that, for the microwaves. Anyway, that whole sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7 bar bits that makes up the numerals, that was like something I believe someone made stickers of. But anyway, or I might do some sorts of PhD about something to do with games, I guess. But would I get to PhD? Probably not. Anyway, and Dave Wedderall says, be kind to bots. They may be lonely. Very true. And talking about Denim Spur, who helps me finish things, Dave Wedderall says, congrats to Denim Spur on getting Dice Cruise, his first game, signed last week. And speaking of more not bot, people talk about such things as amazing job. I hope this channel makes it big one day. Also, let's build each other up. Want to be friends? Yeah, Dave meant to write not to bots, honest. I think this is like just when you've got bots, you can be aware of who they are. Now let's move into some questions that were beforehand by Alan Oughton, and have a little bit I wrote up, because if I just to show the comments, Alan Oughton made this massive comment that is 5 questions long, and it would cover most of the screen, and that's only 2 of the questions. But if I go back and I use the comments, which is what I've done. And so I copy pasted them all into comments. So thank you very much, Alan Oughton. All these questions, I will be answering them whenever I've got these Ask Me Anythings for the next week or however long. So first of a bunch of questions. This is a this is a one-parter. We are now allowed to meet up with one person from outside our household as long as we maintain 2-meter distance. Can you think of any games that would be suitable? Now, when I read this, I thought this was a really interesting question, because are there any games that are suitable for this distancing that you can't just play via video chat? Is that not the exact same question? Now, I got to thinking, okay, there's one technology that you could have from video chats that you can say, okay, you get to see this card, I'm not looking at it, and you get this card, look, I'm not looking at it, okay, I'm putting them down, and okay, now maybe you have a 2-meter stick, and then you tap the cards to indicate which one you want to play, or something like that. So in theory, there is a little bit more hidden information that's possible, because in the video chat, if I want to show it to, I guess I can still show it to one person via video chats. I mean, 2 people, yeah, I guess if we have, yeah, I kind of come back to the sense that any game that you can play without actually touching the same pieces, without actually touching each other, you're going to be able to play anyway. I mean, meeting up with a person from 2-meter, from who's standing like 2.1 meters away, that's basically just about saying, okay, we are being able to see each other a bit more realistically. It's a bit more like real life. It's all about that emotional benefits, isn't it? So when we come to the question, it's fundamentally, what can you think of any games that would be suitable for one other person, via video chats? It's the exact same question. In which case, yeah, for the L deck, you've got Balanceable, you've got Mini Muckle, you've got Freemel, you've got a whole bunch of games. If you're starved of ideas, then please follow my stream that I do streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m, normally starting around 8:05 on Tuesdays and 8:10 p.m. on Thursdays. So we have a bit of a chat, and then we play games. Games that we've really enjoyed recently include Say Anything. That's a really good one. Or Just One. Just One is one that we've enjoyed online. Or indeed the 15 questions bit from the Big Taboo, but that requires one person to be moderator and other people to not. What's other? Oh, I did play Yogi with people online, where people need to have a deck of cards, not necessarily Yogi cards, just a deck of cards. So even if the only cards that I had were the mine, then someone else would draw it and say, okay, it's this card on your shoulder. So I'd put it up, and I still need to draw the next cards, even if it's like one finger touching those, just to have that ability to draw the card. Anyway, so if you're not sure what games can be played, then I will do that. And if anyone is interested in me making a list of games that we have played online and having some really short, like 1-sentence description of each, then let me know, and I'll make that a thing on Board Game Geek. So that is that question. Now let me turn the tables very quickly on everyone watching right now. So let me ask you, what game should I review tomorrow? So I was thinking about games. I'm not going to review that, but we have finished Pandemic Legacy Season 1. So if I were to review Pandemic Legacy Season 1, what I'd try to do would be to do a broad spoiler-free thing for the first half hour, but I would do a spoiler-based review definitely at some point. I want to work out how exactly to balance the spoiler review. So just the options are Pandemic Legacy, Yogi, the solo mode of Unu, or Ticket to Ride New York. So this is a question. Ticket to Ride New York, I've had a lot of fun with. That's a good game. Unu, I played the solo mode. I didn't like it very much. I don't know if I'll ever play the multiplayer mode. If I do, it'll be just for the sake of the review. But yeah, that is it interesting for me to review a game? Just say I'm only reviewing the solo mode. Is that of interest? Yogi, this is a game that I made. That's another question. Should I be reviewing like games that I made? It wouldn't be like a review. I can't really say whether it's good or bad in the same way that I can for other people's games, because clearly I'm really biased. Because hey, the biggest name, well, is it the biggest name? Who's Bez? And then where's Simon Caruso? Oh, there's Caruso. Yeah, my name is bigger. Anyway, so I'm clearly biased about this, but maybe I can talk a little bit about the history or why I did certain things. And also, I think it would be really interesting for me to acknowledge that I'm biased, but try to review my own game. That's basically how I'd go about it. I would basically be pretending that this is a game from someone else and say, okay, how would I react if this was from someone else? And finally, Pandemic Legacy, that's a game I'm definitely interested in reviewing at some point. Would you, if I were to review it, would you want my stream to be completely spoiler-free? Does this morning thing need to be a spoiler-free thing? Like if I say, like let's say Thursday, I am doing the last 40 minutes of it, it's Pandemic Legacy Part 2 spoilers or whatever. Would that be really horrible? Because I know that there are some people like Alan who do make this part of their daily routine. So please let me know in the comments all of those things. Now, Alan Oughton asks about is the game like table tennis allowed? Does the fact that the ball enters both personal spaces disallow it? This is going back to the what game would you play? Could you play with two people 2 meters apart, but not via video chat? Frankly, at the point where you're knocking a ball back and forth, you're going to both be picking up that ball. You're both going to be, sometimes it goes off your side, sometimes it goes off my side. I will pick that ball. We will share contamination. And so if you are playing table tennis at that point, frankly, you might as well have a hug. And I think that I'm not going to say what's reasonable and what's not during this pandemic, but I don't think that's... Alan does quickly ask, I have Pandemic. Is there a big difference in Legacy? Yes, there is. There's 12 games of Pandemic. Pandemic Legacy has 12 months to play through. I would say that 70% of month 1 is the same as Pandemic, and then it just gets wilder and wilder from there. Alan Oughton votes from other things. So I'll go through that in a minute. Now let's go through another question. Alan Oughton says, yesterday's discussion on stacking games was fascinating. Thank you very much. It's also clearly, by the way, just to tell you, I've had to edit some of these slightly down because there is a 200 character limit per banner. It also clearly illustrates how games that may seem very similar in principle may actually be quite different in certain aspects. And there were a couple of points, and the fact that, the Ticket to Rides, like there is a Ticket to Ride New York, and there's also a Ticket to Ride London. I mean, and they are quite similar, but completely different. But has anyone ever tried to define games in such a way that someone might be able to find a game that is similar to or as good as another? And if so, how on earth are they doing it? And then my mind immediately went, when I read this question, to Jeff Engelstein and Isaac Shalev. I should actually because there's a thing, board game mechanisms. So there's a academic book, and you might be able to find it in Building Blocks of. No, it's not. It's yeah, it is the Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design. So if I divide my screen and do a little share screen, I will be able to show you this book. So the Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design, a nice encyclopedia of mechanisms by Jeffrey Engelstein and Isaac Shalev. And it goes on to all the tabletop things, starting with the game structure and then going to how you resolve things. Is it a high number stat check, critical hits, failures? It gets really... And then how do you involve uncertainty, betting and bluffing, push your luck, memory, hidden rules, rules with asymmetric information, communication limits, unknown information, hidden information, probability and management, variable setup, hidden control. And that's just one of the sections out of 12, 13. And you see there's a lot of really cool information here. I'm probably going to get a copy of that book. In fact, I don't know why I haven't yet. I think it's because I'm still feeling a little bit uncertain about cash in general. But that's something amazing that those authors, Isaac Shalev and Jeff Engelstein, have done. And let's go back to the cover of the book. So that's the cover. And what they've done there is they've tried to make an authoritative list of mechanisms, and they were going really digging down a lot more than they do on Board Game Geek. Now, they dug down so much that Board Game Geek last year said, okay, we are going to try to make our board game mechanisms a bit more useful, so we're actually using this game as a starting point. Now, going back to what Alan Oughton continues to say is, note, there are lots of ways to catalog games, for example, by title, designer, game type, date, rating, popularity, age, number of players, length of time, the pieces, mechanics, etc. But the more subtle aspects, the ones that really make the difference, may well not be captured. Now, I guess this comes into what are those more subtle aspects? I mean, I guess Alan Oughton made a point between, for example, Penguin Pile-Up, I think it was called Penguin Pile-Up, and and what was The Last Straw. And so they both had fundamentally the same number of rules, except that Penguin Pile-Up, you divided 24 between everyone. Last Straw, you took some number each, which meant that there's a variable difficulty depending on how many players are playing. And the other thing is that Penguin Pile-Up, it was a component that kind of wibble wobbles, teeter-totters, and then you drop things. It's a little bit more interesting than... and it's got cute little penguins. It affects the toys, the components, the physical tactility of something affects your experience. Affects your experience, sorry. And so going back to the question, why not surely that's a combination between the pieces and the mechanics. And I mean, fundamentally, what are games? Like, when I look at this box, what is Yogi? Yogi, I guess it is to some extent the rules that are on these cards. Like, if I change the words on these cards, the game would be different. If I changed, I mean, like I say, if Gigamek changed, like if I asked them to change, like if it were changed, or if any of these instructions were fundamentally changed, it would be a different game. If instead of saying you draw pioche le premier card, draw the first card from the card holder, if instead of that it said draw the first two cards, it would be a different game. It would be very similar, but it would be a different game. Now I'm going to argue that yes, the components are the game as well. So the fact that you can roll that does make it a different game. The fact that it has art, the fact that it has card holders that keep it in place, it's a different experience. It does become different. So to my mind, Yogi is a different game from In a Bind. And there's also a question of, when we talk about a game, are we talking about a game that facilitates this a similar experience, there has to you probably as a designer want some consistency of experience. That's a very extreme example. Imagine that you had a game that sometimes it was insanely strategic and tactical, but then once in a while there was a voting mechanism or a random card that popped up that completely made all your strategy meaningless. I mean, that wouldn't be a good game because you don't know what you're going in for. You don't know what to expect, and then the people who want strategy are going to be sometimes disappointed. The people who want silliness are sometimes going to be disappointed. There's massive value in saying this is what the game is and trying to be able to deliver that experience over and over again. For example, LCR, for all the fact that it's a game, whether we call it a game or not, the fact that it's an activity or a game-like activity that doesn't have any decisions making, it can last a variable amount of time, but the actual process of doing it, roll the dice and move some chips around, and the amount of decision making that's required, i.e. 0, is always the same. And that's a nice thing about it. The fact that if you wanted to have basically something to do with your hands, it's kind of like a replacement for knitting. And I don't want to denigrate LCR. It's a thing that has sold copies that lots of people are legitimately enjoying. And so I don't want to take that away from them. Now let's talk about mechanisms. I will posit that, yeah, if you analyze game mechanisms, that's basically what Board Game Geek is trying to do. And if people start using these game mechanisms and nailing them down more and more and more, and if this becomes more and more precise, then soon enough we will be able to say, hey, this game has this 20 mechanisms, this game shares 18 of them, therefore these games must be fairly similar. And then for the stuff that you can't tell, you are going to be able to tell the difference by the camera. I mean, you could tell the difference between The Last Straw and Penguin Pileup, frankly, in 10 seconds. In a 1-minute review, like literally. And I probably should do a 1-minute review of Penguin Pileup. But my point is also, should finding games that are similar to, if two games are really identical, I'm going to posit that there's not much point in them both being in the marketplace. So yes, you've got a small number of big body dexterity games. Now, obviously, there is Twister, there is Yogi, there is Big Body Party, and there is also Dancing Eggs. And I think that after that, you get more into games where the big body dexterity isn't like such a major part of the game. And so it's a small enough part of the game that I would even count it. You do have really old stuff like Funny Bones and also Twister Hoopla, but fundamentally and also since I made In a Bind, they've got like Twister the card game. But basically, so when I made In a Bind, I was like, okay, what actually exists? And I found like 3 things. Now, let's say I had found a game that was exactly the same as In a Bind. I would not have bothered making it, because at that point, why make it? There is the argument that, there's an old game of I Betcha, I space BETCHA, where you kind of, you're trying to do theirs, and you say, I betcha that's the thing that you're trying to do secretly. Now, sometimes that has been maybe almost repurposed by someone else. And let's talk about something that's actually still in print, like Telestrations, where Telestrations, and they have Telestrations After Dark, then Big Potato took that and made Scroll. Now, is there a reason for both games to exist in the marketplace? I mean, I don't know if there is. Frankly, I mean, I guess it's okay for people to have 2 options, but frankly, at the point where you're really enjoying Telestrations, why would you want to bother with something that's basically almost the same but marginally different? I mean, I guess sometimes you want variety, but maybe a little bit more content. I mean, maybe I'm really enjoying just one, and I'm like, okay, I really enjoyed this genre. I guess it's the same way some people really like worker placements games. There's not enough big body dexterity games. I'm just saying there clearly are not. But yeah, I'm going to call that question answered. Has anyone ever? The original question was, has anyone I know done it? That would be no. And yeah, apart from maybe Jeff Engelstein and Isaac Shalev and everyone at Board Game Geek. Now, let me check out the comments again. We've got wrapping up. So, Alan votes for Yunu. Where did I put that? Oh, here. So this is a game by Todd Sanders. This is, even though I haven't sold it, even though I've not said it's very good. Dave Wedderall says Ticket to Ride New York might be interesting, as I've played other Ticket to Rides. And Alan Outson says, oh, Legacy, please, honestly, tell me how you feel about spoilers. Genuinely, if I were to review this, and if I were to say, okay, I'll spend 40 minutes of a show from 10:20 up until 11 p.m. doing spoilers of Pandemic Legacy, would that be okay with you? Or, because this is a game that ideally you want to play, I mean, maybe I would do, okay, half an hour of spoilers, because I feel like there is such a lot to get into. And Alan says any game is good. I mean, I'll probably get to all of them, if I'm being honest. Like, we're going to be in lockdown for a while. I'm going to thank you very much, Alan, for your easygoing nature. Alan posts the links to the Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design. It is a very good game. It's a bit pricey, as all academic books are, but there you go. This has been a lovely episode. I'm going to pick New York for tomorrow. So that is what I'm going to talk about, because I feel like this is one that after tomorrow, my opinions almost certainly isn't going to change. Whereas I could imagine maybe at some point during lockdown still playing this, because this is 1 to 4 players. Probably not going to. I might play it one more. Played it one time solo, and anyway, did it really feel like anyway. So I'm going to talk about Ticket to Ride New York tomorrow. I'm going to try to make a habit of doing games that I feel like I've explored as much as I'm willing to do. And that is my tomorrow thing. Alan's intrigued by Yunu. I'm not saying Yunu's a bad game, and just to clarify, I have never played the 2 to 4 player game. I've only played the 1 player game. I just found it overly simple. And then when I looked online, Todd Sanders was already working on like a second version thing. Yeah, it felt like it was a bit rushed, frankly. And that's why I didn't like it, because I beat it. I was like, oh, this is a bit simple. It feels a bit luck-based. And then Todd Sanders says, oh, I've heard everyone saying that this is too simple. Some working really hard on the harder version. And in the harder version, there's like no there's nothing to say, yeah, this is definitely being play tested. And I want to have something in the box that's kind of done. Dave says that they've played Pandemic Legacy and they would only be interested in hearing about it with spoilers. So, yeah, that's fair. Now, let's talk about things that we're all looking forward to. If you are watching, if you're looking forward to anything in the next day or so, please let me know in the comments, wherever they are. They're somewhere in that region. And what am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to... yeah, what am I looking forward to? I mean, it's getting a bit colder. I'm not sitting outside, as you may have noticed. I am looking forward to breakfast, and sometimes that is enough. And today, I'm going to Lidl. So I'm going to, I know it's not a big exciting thing, but in this day and age, where the last time I went to a big supermarket was basically a month ago, And since then, I've just been going to the corner shop for eggs and like popping over to the £1 market for bananas. Going to big supermarkets, it's a big mission. I'm going with like my giant backpack and expecting to, fill my bike panniers and my massive travel backpack. This backpack, just for reference, this is all the stuff that I took for, I think, yeah. No, no, when I went to Nuremberg, I think I actually took my suitcase as well. Anyway, but it is a really big, giant backpack. I'll actually show it to you. Um, so this is my rucksack. Anyway, so that is the thing. I'm looking forward to going to Lidl. I'm looking forward to breakfast. And I am looking forward to seeing what I do and having, some time myself. And Michelle pops in to say we played Uno multiplayer and we agreed we would play it again, so it's probably okay. I don't remember as it was a learning game and not played solo. So maybe I will actually, give it a bit of go. And it would be interesting to compare and contrast the solo mode, I guess. But anyway, so tomorrow is Ticket to Ride New York. If you've got any specific questions about that, ask away. Otherwise, I'll just, analyze it to my normal haphazard tangent-taking style. For now, thank you all for watching along. Thank you everyone who's engaged in a meaningful way, like Michelle, Alan. Special thanks to Alan for all the questions, Alan Oughton, Dave Wedderall, and even the bot who kind of popped in with a question along the way. So thank you very much, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful day today. And whether you pop in tomorrow or whether, I'll be back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow, in case that isn't obvious, I'm back here at 10 a.m. every day. And whether you're back here tomorrow or next week or whenever you are, I hope you have a wonderful time. Stay safe, stay sane, stay awesome, stay fabulous, and be brilliant, be bold, be bombastic. But for now, bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the bye-bye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye.